Hey there, Living Waters family. Drew here with another SoulCare Saturday video. So today I want to talk about two things that are very, very similar, but not the same. And often in, I think, our Christian faith and in trying to follow Jesus, we have a hard time differentiating the difference or the different applications of these two things. So I want to talk about them today, and I hope that'll give some of you out there just a little bit more clarity and direction when it comes to this stuff. Those two things I want to talk about today are forgiveness and reconciliation. So they are not the same thing. Both, however, require an offense to happen. They require a relational breakdown. And as I talked about in last week's video, most of, if not all, of the wounds that we carry are relational wounds in nature. Sure, there are different things that happen that are trauma that aren't necessarily about relationship or in the context of relationship, but most of the wounds that we carry, we experienced in relationship with people. And like I said before, if you've been wounded in relationship, then you have to be healed in relationship. And so it's important. Like, we have to recognize the dynamics that are at play here. So if you've been wounded in relationship, then you've experienced some sort of trauma, some sort of pain, some sort of offense. And it's there and it's not going away. So if we've been wounded in relationship, of course, we have to heal in relationship. Well, the only way to begin to heal relationally with another person that's hurt you is by engaging in forgiveness. Now, forgiveness affords the opportunity for reconciliation, but it's not the same thing as reconciliation. Forgiveness, which is commanded to us by our Lord in the scriptures, is, in a nutshell, simply to say, you hurt me, you owe me, but I am not requiring you to pay it. So it's recognizing the wound or the hurt or the offense or the debt or whatever it is and saying, you actually can't fix it, you can't make it better, I'm releasing you of the responsibility to make it better. In some ways, we can look at it as the language of debt. Like, if you have a debt, and you say, I forgive the debt, you recognize that the person can't pay it back, and you're dismissing it, dismissing the charges, and it's gone. Forgiveness is like that. Forgiveness looks at the wounds relationally, it looks at the hurts that have been created in our lives, and it recognizes that no single person can go back and undo those things. See, people can't make it better. You can't undo the hurt you've done. You can't unoffend, you can't unneglect, you can't unabuse someone. Those things have happened, and the only thing that can happen in response is to extend forgiveness and to receive forgiveness. And so forgiveness does that. It buries the hatchet. It cancels the debt. It says, you no longer have to try to repay me, because repayment is contractual, and relationship doesn't do that. Relationship really just it banks on grace and forgiveness and mercy, and it depends on those things, because we can't pay back wounds. So forgiveness, which we're commanded to do, basically states the debt has been paid, you don't have to pay it, it's canceled. But where people start to get confused and start to get troubled is this idea of reconciliation. See, now reconciliation requires forgiveness to happen, because when relationship has been broken, it happens because of an offense. And you can't fix an offense in relationship if you don't acknowledge it. It has to be acknowledged. A lot of people will try to move forward in relationship without addressing the wounds and the offenses, without naming them and seeking forgiveness and grace and mercy in those places. But I'm telling you right now, it does not work. Inevitably, if we try to just smooth over offenses in relationships without actually acknowledging the pain and walking through the process of forgiveness, then those things will never actually heal. So forgiveness makes a way for reconciliation to happen. And reconciliation is where the relationship is put back together, where if there has been an offense and there is forgiveness offered, then forgiveness says, and do you want to make our relationship whole again? Do you want to start over? Do you want to start fresh? Do you want to get back to where we left off? That's all reconciliation. When you come together and you repair what has been broken. Forgiveness is not repairing what has been broken. Forgiveness simply says that it can't be repaid by the other person, that you're letting them off the hook. Reconciliation says, let's fix this and move forward. And I think the place where a lot of us get really tied up in Christianity, because forgiveness is commanded, and because we often have a hard time dealing with hard truths and boundaries and consequence, often what happens is forgiveness and reconciliation get convoluted to mean the same thing. And so we have believers in Jesus who are wrestling with deep wounds in their lives. And when they come to this place of recognizing that forgiveness is the only way to get free of it, unfortunately what it begins to kind of settle into our hearts and minds sometimes is that forgiveness requires that we're back in relationship with the person who hurt us. And sometimes the wounds that have been created, the people that created those wounds, they're not safe, they're not well, and it's just not right to reconcile. It's okay to forgive without having to reconcile. I want to say that again, because sometimes we don't understand this reality. It is okay to forgive someone and not reconcile with them. You know, in my life, there's been several people that have hurt me. No shock there. I mean, if you're in a relationship with anybody, you're going to hurt each other. It's just inevitable because we're humans and we have a lot of brokenness and we have a lot of selfishness and we end up hurting each other. That's fine. Forgiveness flows, and for those, those moments in those relationships, forgiveness and reconciliation happens really easily. But there have been some relationships in my life where people have been super abusive, super unhealthy, sometimes even downright evil towards me. And although the Lord has asked me to forgive them, He has not asked me to be in relationship with them again. See, it's healthy for us to recognize sometimes where relationships are just toxic, or they're limited and they're broken. And, because a person maybe doesn't admit the fault that they've done or the hurt that they've caused, maybe that makes them unsafe to reconcile with. Maybe we just get to a place where we don't want to put ourselves in a position to be hurt again because the other person is just continuing to be unrepentant and disrespectful and rude. Regardless, the Lord does give us a ministry of reconciliation, which we have the ability to reconcile with people and help them reconcile their relationship to God first and foremost. But He doesn't require us, when we walk through forgiveness, to make peace and make right and build back together every relationship. Some of you really need to hear that. If there are people in your lives who've hurt you, if you've worked through forgiveness, you don't have to walk back into relationship with them. It's okay. You can have boundaries. You can say no. For some of you, you haven't even begun to approach forgiveness because forgiveness and reconciliation have been made to be the same thing in your minds. And what I want to say to you is you don't have to reconcile to forgive. In fact, forgiveness, when you have a relationship where you can't reconcile it, is one of the healthiest things, because it essentially takes the weight of that offense and the brokenness of the relationship. It says, I forgive this and I'm done. And you can walk away. Dog's barking. I know some of you have needed to hear that. I know that when I heard it for the first time, it was absolutely freeing beyond belief, because I was preventing myself from moving towards forgiveness with people because I didn't want to make them available to hurt me again. And I think this is where the grace of God and the mercy of God and the kindness of God really, really steps into a lot of our relational brokenness. Yes, forgive, because we've been forgiven. But reconcile, we don't have to do that. If it's not safe, if it's not healthy, or if you're not ready, you don't have to. But start with forgiveness. That's all I've got for you. I hope you're having a wonderful week. Bless you all.